John, sometimes I spend my time telling Timberwolves fans to calm down. And inevitably, when I tell them to calm down, something bad happens and I look foolish. I've been telling people not to worry so much about supposed bad losses. And then they have just a horrible loss to the 76ers on Sunday night. Let's start the Jon Krawczynski show with John's assessment of whether that is the kind of loss that people should be offended by. We'll get to that in 1 second. This is the Jon Krawczynski show, part of TalkNorth.com. This is TalkNorth.com. John is our basketball expert. You can also hear him on the Viking Update show. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio, and we're presented to you by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. We'll tell you more about our other great sponsors later. All right, John. Just a bad loss that you should forget about, or was the 76ers loss one of those that should stick in somebody's craw?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's sort of two ways to look at it, but in general, what I would skew to is, that is a really disappointing loss. Now, they did not have Rudy Gobert and they did not have Naz Reid, and so those are serious, major absences. And then you see how the game started with Beringer getting in foul trouble, with Julius Randle getting in foul trouble. It just was really one of those wonky games right from the start. And so I don't think necessarily it was the worst thing in the world that they lost the game. That can happen in these seasons. And when you just get thrown off of your mark a little bit like that, not the worst thing. But the biggest issue I had is that they were just not very competitive for most of the game. And so when you're getting run out of the building by a team that I don't think is as talented as the Wolves are, and that is missing Embiid and Paul George, it should be a little bit alarming. I don't, again, like you and I are both, I'm not trying to fire anyone. I'm not trying to trade anyone after that game, but I do think like those are the types of performances that do make you doubt what this team can really do and will they really put it into gear. Now watch them, rip off 3 in a row on the road and put it behind you. But yeah, it was a very, the way I've used, it was just a gross performance. Like they were just not very connected defensively, not a lot of effort on that end. And those are the ones that are really hard to watch.
Agreed. And what I wonder and what I've written about is for everything he's accomplished, I thought that was kind of the bad side of Anthony Edwards. He had a lot of turnovers. He was kind of more playful than intense. Some of his turnovers were trying to dribble the ball cutely between his legs, 30 feet from the basket. I won't blame him for all the defensive lapses. They had everybody not getting to the 3-point line, but I thought he was kind of part of that. I guess I would like to see Anthony Edwards in a situation in a game like that, walk on the court and say, I'm going to set the tone. I'm going to make sure we don't take this team lightly. I'm going to make sure we play with the defensive intensity. I'm going to take it seriously, and I'm going to smack somebody if I have to.
Yeah. I think that we already have Rudy Gobert suspended, so we don't need Anthony Edwards suspended for smacking anyone. But to your point, though, one of the things that he continues to have to work on is the consistency of effort, especially defensively. I thought in the game he was really good for the first 3 quarters offensively, and every time he went to the bench, the offense just couldn't do anything. And so it did speak to the value that he brings to the offense, shot making, shot creation, playmaking, all of those things. And he was really good through the first, 2.5 or 3 quarters, really efficient, keeping the offense going, and it would just fall apart when he was off of the floor. But one of the reasons that the Sixers had so much success from behind the 3-point line, I think they had 23 or 24 threes, is because Ant was part of a team that was just not closing out on 3-point shooters with any kind of intensity and focus, and giving very clean looks to VJ Edgecombe and to Maxey and to everyone, and just letting them strafe from out there. And it was, those are the kinds of efforts that are a little maddening. I think, it was, if I'm Rudy Gobert, I am submitting that tape as my defensive player of the year candidacy argument, because everything did fall apart defensively for them without him on the floor. That said, a lot of the defensive issues were on the perimeter. And I do wonder, Jim, if Ant is one of those guys who is over-reliant on Rudy. In terms of, I think that he has gotten so used to funneling drivers to Rudy at the paint. And so when Rudy is not there and when Beringer's in foul trouble or whoever, then Ant is still letting these guys get to the rim. And it's not just him, it's DiVincenzo, it's Mike Conley, it's all of their guys, but you want your star player to set the tone that way. And he was really, really good offensively, but defensively was an issue. And this team will not find its full potential until he locks in there. That's what makes this team really special, is when their best player is not only great offensively, but is really engaged defensively on and off the ball and does everything that he can to kind of shut off the other team's water. He can do that. And there are nights that he doesn't, and the Philadelphia one was that, and it was pretty glaring when it was all said and done and you lose by 20 plus on your home floor to a team that, is a fine team, but shouldn't be doing that to you.
Right. And also played on Saturday night and should have been a little more leg weary than the Wolves. Beringer gets a chance to start in place of Gobert. Immediate foul trouble. Still love him. I still love everything about him. I think things still going to be great. But just another reminder that, the guys on the bench often are on the bench because they're not quite ready.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with what happened with Jon Beringer in that game, in terms of a young guy who is just super excited to be in that spot, is probably almost trying to block too many shots, and is kind of a little bit wild and out of position. That's just the energy of youth, and it can work for him and it can work against him, and it worked against him in that game. And there are a lot of Wolves fans who have just been clamoring for Finch to get him more time and more time. And maybe if he had a little bit more time earlier in the season, maybe he'd be settled in right now. But the reality of it is, Jim, like you said, he is 19 years old. He started playing 4.5 years ago. And the variance in his play, in his performance, is going to be wild right now. And we have seen really, really good minutes from him. And we've seen minutes where he really struggles, like in Philadelphia, like against Philadelphia. And so that's just the roller coaster that you ride with a player like that. He is going to be a very good player. But he still has a lot to learn. And you do see, again, like a renewed appreciation for Rudy, because Rudy, yes, he has the flagrant fouls, but he is just so sound defensively in terms of being in the right spot all of the time. And Beringer is not that guy yet. And so the perimeter players cannot rely on him in the same way that they can rely on Rudy. And so it's just like, all it is a matter of time. It's just going to take time for Jon to get going. I do think that his offense is already really impressive in terms of the way that his teammates really trust him and throw in the ball and get it to him in tight spaces and through lobs and all of those things. We were in the locker room with him after the game, and you could tell how sort of frustrated and despondent he was. Like, he really wanted to help his group and just didn't have it that night and was a little bit out of control. And so, that is why Chris Finch has been kind of piecemeal with his minutes. They're trying to ease him into things a little bit more, and you just kind of take the good with the bad with it. Unfortunately for them, he had a bad night, not only when Rudy was out, but when Nas was out. And so that really just kind of, made it much more difficult for them to overcome when you have two of your three best big guys out, and not, they may have been able to survive just one, but you couldn't survive two and have Beringer playing that way.
As you said, it's good for campaign literature, though. Rudy just won the Defensive Player of the Year award, and Nas just won the Sixth Man of the Year award. All I have to do is show videos of that performance by the team without them, and they're in.
100%. Like that's it. Now, there's Wembanyama, I think, is a clear front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. But man, if you just see what the Timberwolves defense looks like with Rudy on, and then you put it out there when he is not out there, the variance is off the charts. And we've been talking all year too, Jim, about the bench and their lack of scoring around Nas, and then you take Nas out of it. And that really does bolster his Sixth Man of the Year candidacy. And the other part that I think is important to mention with Nas, Jim, is that I do believe that they miss him defensively right now too. His rebounding has just improved immensely over the season, and like he is a rugged, hard-nosed rebounder, so that when they're playing defense, they can close possessions a lot better when Naz Reid is on the floor versus when you have, Jaden McDaniels at the 5 and Ant at the 4, something like that. And so, there are certainly certain matchups that Naz might struggle with defensively, and he works through some of those things, but I think by and large, he has become an additive defensive player for this group. And that does show you just an incredible development on his part. And that's why, when he is out, it's even a starker contrast from when he's playing in the games.
No doubt about it. All right, let's get to Rudy, the flagrant fouls, whether they're his fault, whether something can be done about it, whether his assessment of his situation is accurate or not. First, we do want to let you know we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services, wishing you a warm and cozy Happy New Year. Not so cozy? Still relying on that furnace that's, not so reliable? Here's the fix for 2026. Enjoy no payments and no interest for 6 months on a new high-efficiency whole home heating and cooling system. Enjoy today and don't pay until this summer. Schedule your free estimate today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Financing based on credit approval. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
And the Jon Krawczynski Show is presented to you by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with 2 great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
I was thinking about Bill Murray's career the other day.
Bill Murray.
He was on Saturday. He was a comedian. He was an improv guy. He goes on Saturday Night Live. Nobody ever thought he was going to become a great actor. He became a great actor.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of thinking about Steve Terry, kind of the same way. I mean, he helps bring TSR injury law to the forefront. They go from being a one-room business to a massive successful business because it helps so many people.
Super Bowl commercials.
Super Bowl. I mean, he's everywhere now, and he's showing some acting range. I would say he can act with anybody. If you can act with Naz Reid and Micah Nori, you can kind of act with anybody. So, I just for next year's Oscars, just keep that in mind. If you actually need help from TSR injury law, what you need to remember is 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. We hope you don't need that number, but if you need that number, you're going to want somebody who can help you, and they won't charge you unless they win your case, and they win a lot of cases. 612-TSR-TIME. Keep working on the acting chops, Steve. All right, Rudy Gobert says that he gets hit in the head a lot, doesn't get calls, and that sometimes he gets unfairly penalized when he flails a little bit. I think I agree with half of that. I think he gets hit in the head a lot. He doesn't get a lot of calls. I also think sometimes, like the other night, I thought that was a legitimate call. You can't just flail your hand out and hit somebody in the face or neck.
Yeah, exactly right, Jim. I mean, Rudy Gobert is 100% correct that there are multiple occasions, generally game to game, where he's battling for rebounds, he is underneath the basket, or he's going up for a dunk or a layup, and he gets whacked on the head. And it very rarely is called a flagrant or even reviewed for a flagrant foul. And part of that, I guess, is because he's just a big guy that kind of powers through things. And so it is very much unfair to Rudy that he is, is officiated that way on the offensive end or on the defensive end with rebounds, and just the contact that is continually allowed to his head and neck area and is not reviewed for flagrant fouls. That's unfair. No question about it. That has nothing to do, though, with the flagrant fouls that he is picking up himself. I mean, you can argue maybe one or two of them were a little bit soft or questionable, but they can appeal these things, and the league looks at it, and they did appeal the last one, and it got denied. But largely, he has put himself in this position. And the most difficult part of it is that I don't think that Rudy Gobert is a dirty player. I don't think this is Draymond Green level flagrant fouls or anything like that. But they nonetheless, with the way the game is officiated, are flagrant fouls. When you close out on a 3-point shooter and put your feet in his landing area, that's a flagrant foul. I don't like a lot of those calls, but that's what the league has emphasized. And Rudy can't say that he didn't know or that, that this was a surprise to him, because the league has really cracked down on that. And I think he's had at least 2, maybe even 3 of those this season. Though when he is battling for rebounds and his arm does flail up and catch someone in the face, in the neck area, like it did, just a couple of days ago, that's a flagrant foul. And now he is at a point where even just a, relatively minor flagrant one call, the next one, he's out 2 games. And so we just saw what happened against Philadelphia when he is out. That is how important he is to this lineup, to this roster, to what they do defensively, just to everything that they have going. And so it is going to be a very delicate line that Rudy has to walk the rest of the way, because one of the things that makes him a great defender is his aggression and is his ability to contest and to not, give up anything on that end of the floor. And so, but he can't be too aggressive and overly aggressive, because the next flagrant one he gets, he's out for 2 games, and there are only 24 left now. And so as this team tries to chase down a top 3-4 seed in the West, they need Rudy Gobert out there every single night. And so he's going to have to play a slightly different style, or at least a little bit more careful than he has before. And that is on Rudy to do. That is not on the officials. You'd love it if the officials just start calling a few more of those against Rudy, but Rudy's picking these up and he's earning them. And so it's, he's got to lock in that way and just be extra careful and extra focused to not put himself in position to get those fouls, because when he is out, the Timberwolves are at a massive disadvantage. And that's just what has to enter his mind down the stretch here.
Amazing. You just said there are 24 games left.
Yeah.
I feel like these long seasons lull you to sleep, and all of a sudden you look up and it is the stretch run. It is time to go. And it'll be really to see how this team responds.
It's let me just have some fun with this, because it's very much, I'm thinking like when my wife was pregnant with our first child. It's a 9-month, kind of season. And we went through it, and you're preparing the whole way. And then I remember, when she came down, I was sleeping, she came down and she said, "Hey, John, my water broke. I think it's time to go to the hospital." And I'm like, wait a minute, what? This is actually happening? You do get lulled into this period, probably between month 7 and month, 8.5 of God, we've done all these things, we've prepared. Is this ever going to happen? And you think about that with the playoffs too, of man, the season is so long, and every one of these is just one of 82, and does it really matter? And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's, we are a month and a half away from the playoffs starting and the baby coming. And so, you definitely, it sneaks up on you in a way. And I do think in some ways, this is sneaking up on the Wolves a little bit. They have been complacent. They have kind of been all season long just saying, yeah, we'll be ready, but once the playoffs come, we'll be ready once the playoffs come. And all of a sudden the playoffs are right around the corner, and it is time for them to really start to lock in and focus because, it's almost go time, and they just have to be playing more consistently and better as we get into March here and into April, or else they really run the risk of, not being ready for the playoffs, and that's got to be front of mind right now.
By the way, I want to give Anthony Edwards some props. This time last year, we were worried about his technical fouls and how they might keep him out of play. He has really cleaned that up.
He's done a really good job with that. I mean, he still picks up several here and there, but it's not anywhere to the degree that it was last year. I think it's been a conscious effort on his part, and certainly Tim Connolly, Chris Finch, a bunch of people have talked to him about it, and he's just managing his emotions a little bit better. Because I don't think, Jim, that the whistle has changed for him.
No.
Demonstrably. So to a point where he feels like he doesn't have to argue anymore. I think there's still plenty of things that happen where missed calls and things like that, and that do get him frustrated. But in general, he's able to just be, give a quick, hey, and then just get back into the play or move on from it and not belabor it and not put himself in position to have suspension. So, he is growing in a lot of areas, and I do think that is one notable one to mention for sure.
A lot more to get to, including Io, Conley's return, how the bench is going to play out, the remaining schedule, all that. First, want to hear more about Jon and True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. Go to truevision.com. Set up your free consultation. I was kind of speaking with a fan who was in the DMs on social media last week and just said, hey, I'm looking at getting LASIK surgery. And I just said, you have to go to True Vision. And this is not because we have a business relationship. This is just my absolute genuine feeling about my experience at True Vision. You go in there, they take such great care of you. I was telling this person over DM that what you really don't realize is you go in for the surgery itself, and it's like 45 seconds to a minute on each eye, and you're done. And
Wow.
and that is how quickly it goes. That is how easy it goes. You have some recovery time afterward, but they take such good care of you. It is so quick and efficient to move in and out of there. Dr. Chu is wonderful. All of their, helpful, assistants and everyone that prep you for it are just great. And it is, you will, by the time it's over, you see that's it. It's done. And that's how quick and easy that it is. So go to truevision.com, get your free consultation, get in there, get set up, and tell them the Jon Krawczynski show sent you. And you are in and out of there in no time and seeing clearly without glasses or contacts, very, very quickly, and just get on to living a much easier, much better life without the hassles of glasses or contacts. Go to truevision.com.
Who can make your financial life a little easier, a little more seamless? Royal Credit Union.
At Royal Credit Union, we believe in banking with purpose. That's why we're here for you and your community with people-first service, local support, and all the accounts and loans you need to help reach your financial goals. As a not-for-profit cooperative, everything we do benefits the people and communities we serve, because Royal isn't just where you bank, it's where you belong. Experience the Royal Credit Union difference and learn more at rcu.org/royal support. Insured by NCUA. Loans subject to credit approval. Equal credit opportunity.
We also want to thank sglambchops.com, Shepherd Goods Lamb Chops clothing line. What's going on with sglambchops.com this week?
Super cool, Jim. We were just at the game against the Philadelphia 76ers, and Jordan and the guys were unveiling their latest collaboration with the Timberwolves and Lamb Chops. It was all black gear, hoodies. I think there was a t-shirt. There was a hat, a bunch of different stuff, and it was so cool to see, like very stylish. Everyone wanted it. It was all over Target Center. Unfortunately for Wolves fans, you can only get that gear at Target Center just due to the licensing agreements that they have. But it just also shows how invested these guys are in basketball, in this community. They have super high quality, super stylish stuff. If you go to sglambchops.com, you can get all sorts of great gear and use the promo code JONK20 and you get 20% off anything that you can buy at Lamb Chops. But if you are lucky enough to be at the arena on these Lamb Chop promotional nights, go in and get your gear, and I can guarantee you will see it all over Target Center, and I'm sure people are wearing it all over town as well. But the good folks at Lamb Chops are just churning out great piece after great piece. sglambchops.com. Use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops.
All right, take us through what's happening with the bench and Io, how he's playing, how he's fitting in, and how other roles are being defined now.
Yeah, it's been an interesting kind of early introduction to Io DeSumo. I think that everything that we have seen from him does tell us that he is going to be a great fit on this team. The way that he gets out in transition, the energy and effort that he gives defensively, his ability to knock down shots, his ability to get to the rim in the half court is also helpful, I think. And his just aggression in driving the paint and trying to break the paint and break defenses down is all helpful. So all of that, the kind of just the base and the foundation of his game is all going to translate very well. But there's also signs that we are seeing just growing pains and everything figuring out. In two of the games he's played so far, his first one and then the last one against Philadelphia, first one minus 33 in the plus minus, this one against Philly minus 25. And so there are certainly signs that he is still trying to figure out exactly how he fits in, that his teammates are trying to figure out how to maximize him, but also how to play off of him. And so I just feel like we are in this getting to know you period that is probably going to take a little bit more time to get everything ironed out. And so one of the things that I think is an adjustment for all of these guys with Io is, that this is a team that, generally speaking, has not been a transition-oriented team. And they have worked really hard this season to improve their pace and have been successful at it, but they're still not at a level of where Io is coming from Chicago and they play with the fastest pace in the league. And so you can see sometimes that Io is out ahead of the pack and guys are just not used to being able to run with him and the opportunities that might come with that. So I think the more that they play together, the more adjustment will be made, and that you will start to see kind of more payoff in that regard, especially. And there was one play against Philadelphia defensively where Io and DiVincenzo were at the top, and the Maxey and Edgecombe were kind of like running a little pseudo two-man game, and Io passed Edgecombe off to Dante DiVincenzo when Edgecombe really didn't even really set a screen, but it was kind of a faux screen. And you can tell that Dante did not expect a switch in that situation. And so it was a quick pass over to Edgecombe, wide open three. Dante was late getting over there to close out, and he knocked it down. And that is just one of those, little instances of these two guys aren't on the same page yet because they haven't played enough together. And so there are little breakdowns like that are occurring that I think will be cleaned up as this season goes along here, but are certainly a little damaging right now to the team as they're going through it.
At this moment in time, do you trust Bones Hyland, and would you trust him in a playoff game with big minutes?
Well, so I do believe that Bones Hyland is their best option to have a guy come in and give you 13 points in 8 minutes. Like, I think that his ceiling is high enough that I would absolutely keep running him out there and staying with him, with the understanding that there are going to be nights where there's several turnovers, where the shot is not falling. And I think you almost have to live with those, Jim, right now, because one thing I can tell you is I do think that Bones is playing through a few bumps and bruises. Just a couple of games ago, he was listed as questionable with back spasms. He did play, but I think that that's still lingering a little bit. So that might be affecting, kind of the efficiency that we've seen from him the last couple of games. But all in all, I just think that the juice is so much worth the squeeze in the Bones Hyland case. And that, yes, there are going to be nights where it's not working and it's not falling, kind of clicking the way that you want to, but the alternatives just are not there. Like Mike Conley might maybe once every several games you sprinkle him in, but he's just not going to have the opportunity to give you the same pop from a scoring and playmaking standpoint that Bones can. So I would absolutely ride Bones down the stretch, and I would, unless it really is a meltdown in the playoffs, I would keep running him out there, because when you can see when he gets out there and he knocks down 2 threes, it changes the energy in the building and with the team. And then it also changes his energy as well, including on defense. And they become much more formidable than when when Bones is not out there, and then when it's Mike just kind of out there just making plays and trying to kind of get through things. So that's a long answer, but the short version is that I think they have to keep trusting Bones Hyland, and they have to keep putting him out there, just because the payoff is going to be worth it. Keep putting money into the what do you call it? The pull tab machine, and eventually you're going to hit $500. Like, I just think that's going to be the key with Bones Hyland.
All right, Mike Conley. Did he really never leave his condo as he was being traded from team to team to team? Did he just sit here?
Yeah, yep. It's a house. Like the family has a house here, but yes, they stayed. So I think I tallied it up, and the trade from Minnesota to Chicago to Charlotte, and then Charlotte back to Minneapolis. Technically speaking, it was like 2,500 miles, that he covered in like 3 days. But he did not move a muscle. And so, it all worked out well for him, for his family, for the Timberwolves, because I do think that the team is better with Mike Conley in this locker room, trying to help a moody, emotional team through things. He got thrown out there a lot against Philadelphia, but that was not by design. It was, with the injuries, with the foul trouble, Finch just kind of went back to him, I think more than anyone expected. But his emotional support, his kind of work behind the scenes is going to be critical. And then there will be a game or two here or there where the turnovers are just kind of everywhere, where the defense is slipping, and you might just throw Mike out there to try and stabilize things. And I think he can provide value there. But I do not think this is going to be a case of he's now the 8th man or something like that. But it is really nice to have him when everything is going wrong, and just try and get the adult in the room out there and calm things down.
It is wild to see a roster on a contending team that has basically 2 mentors on the roster, Ingles and Conley. Is there any redundancy there? Are they they come at things from such different angles that they can both be really, highly effective?
Yeah, I do think that they are different personalities, which makes them not redundant. Joe is a smartass, but is also a kind of more confrontational guy, where he'll just straight talk you right in the face. And he's kind of really important for Rudy Gobert, given their long history together. And he will go up to Rudy and say, knock that bleep off. Like, pull yourself together kind of stuff every once in a while. And then there will also be times where he's joking to him, or like just trying to kind of get him settled in that way. He's good with some of the younger guys that way as well. Terrence Shannon Jr. has his locker right next to Joe Ingles. And I think Joe is really valuable for Terrence, as he's worked through a very difficult kind of second season with injuries and kind of all the things that he's gone through. Mike is the guy who kind of pulls you aside and whispers in your ear and pats you on the back and says, this is what we need from you. Come on, go it this way. And so the two of them complement each other, I think, in that regard. Now, next year, I don't expect both of them to be here. I would expect probably one. And so do you always need two? And I don't, I think the hope, honestly, was, Jim, that Mike was going to be a little bit more involved and on the playing court, like just as a guy who could really just give you 15 to 20 minutes at least every single night and be super reliable and effective that way. And so he would lead sort of on the court and Joe would be more in the locker room. But as Mike has shown his age this year, now you have two locker room guys there, and that's okay. I think that the different ways that they go about that role is going to be effective and helpful for this team down the stretch and into the playoffs as well.
All right, let's talk about Julius Randle, and then we will have a Twitter question sponsored by sglambchops.com to wrap up the show. We appreciate everybody who listens. This show is available at talknorth.com on your favorite podcast app, or this one is available via YouTube as well. We appreciate you any way you access the show, and support talknorth.com and John's show. Julius Randle, boy, some severe ups and downs lately, it feels like.
Yeah, it hasn't been great. And I was kind of, he had a big game right before the All-Star break. And it felt like in that game, Julius Randle was sort of getting past the trade rumor stuff and a lot of the things that I think were bothering him. And I felt like, he has that big game, goes into the All-Star break, gets to spend some time with the family on the beach. I kind of expected him to come back really recharged and kind of refreshed. It's been rough the first two games. And I do think that one of the things against Philadelphia was he was under the weather. And so it just seemed like low energy. And maybe some of that was because of whatever illness that he was facing in that moment. But there is no doubt that they need him to find that other gear, down the stretch here if they're going to finish strong and get into that top four and get home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. He needs to give them consistency on offense, high energy playmaking, shot making and creation, ball movement, and then he needs to be just kind of, what's the right word? He needs to be competent defensively and needs to use his strength and his muscle to his advantage especially in the times when Rudy Gobert is on the bench and it's him and Naz in the front court. And we saw, especially in that Philly game, lack of rotation, not getting back on defense. And again, maybe it was low energy with his illness, but it's that's got to pick up. Those low energy Julius Randle games do stick out, and they are easy to see on the screen. And then, conversely, the high energy Randle games are equally impactful in a positive way. And we have seen it over and over again in the playoffs at the start of this season. Right before the All-Star break when he had like 41 points. When he is rolling, he is really, really difficult to deal with, and he can be really overpowering. But when he is not rolling, he can be very easy to deal with, especially on defense. And that's not what you need from Julius Randle. You need him to be very hard to play against, most every night. And maybe it starts to click here on the road because the Wolves really need to get that going.
It seems like a sensitive guy. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, he is. And that's another, I'm glad you brought that up because there are a lot of Wolves fans who can watch these down games from Randle and get really upset and disappointed and say, why doesn't Finch call him out in the post-game press conferences? Why doesn't he bench him all the time? And I will say, first of all, in the game right out of the break against Dallas, against Julius's hometown team, by the way, Finch sat him down the last 3 minutes of the game and rolled with Naz because Naz was playing much better and had earned that. So So he did do that, but that's been a rare occasion for Finch because Chris Finch understands that Julius Randle needs to be coached differently than Anthony Edwards or Rudy Gobert or Jaden McDaniels or whomever. And one of the things that works the best with Julius Randle is kind of shows displays of trust, having his back, like, being the coach and being the team that supports him through thick and thin. And I think that meant a lot to Julius last season when he was really struggling at the start of the year. And Finch said, no, I'm sticking with him. He's my guy. He's my guy. I'm not going to bench him. I'm not going to put Naz Reid in the starting lineup because I know what Julius can do. And lo and behold, they figured it out. He was great down the stretch, great in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. And it really did pay off for him. And so Chris Finch knows that that's what Julius needs from him. Naz Reid needs something different. Anthony Edwards needs something different. Rudy Gobert needs something different. And so as a head coach, you just have to be able to tailor your approach to different guys to get the most out of them. And that's what Chris Finch is doing with the approach that he is taking with Julius Randle here.
Let's wrap up this show. Great stuff from Jon as always. Thanks also to Davide Rosso, our producer from TalkNorth.com, overseeing this recording. Let's get to our Twitter question from sglambchops.com.
Yeah, a good one from Carl Johnson at Carl from Lake Elmo. With being deep into the first apron, having limited to no draft picks the next few years, and limited tradable assets, I feel like we're in win now window that without actually being that close to a true championship contender. Am I off in my assessment here, and or should we be concerned? So first of all, to your first point, Carl, I would say that I do think the Wolves are in a win now window. There's a couple of factors that I think about that. One is that Edwards, Reed, McDaniels are all approaching their prime. They're not there yet, but they are approaching it. And Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle are both in their prime. And so that combination of timeline suggests that this is a group that should have a very much a win now approach. Let's go for it, because how many more years of peak Rudy Gobert are you going to have? How many more years of Julius? Like those types of things you figure out. And so you have to win now for that. The second thing that I think you have to think about win now is, gosh dang it, man, Wembanyama looks like a freaking monster. And the Spurs have won 9 in a row, and they might be too young to win it all this playoffs. Maybe they need to take their lumps a little bit here first, but that window for them is starting to open wide. And so I think there's a sense, not just among the Wolves, but among everybody, that you better try to get what you can get before Wemby really just decides to take over this whole thing. And so, yes, I think for that reason and several others, just go for it now. I am not ready to say that they are not a championship contender yet. There are certainly plenty of reasons Philadelphia at the front of my mind that make you think, yeah, this is an unserious team. They cannot do it. But when you look at a lot of their metrics, they're, top 8 in both offense and defense, the way that they are able to lock in against good teams, a lot of things you say to yourself, in a playoff series, is there any team that I think they cannot beat? No, I don't think they'd be favorites against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think a healthy Denver team would be very difficult, but I think they can beat either one. And if you're in that position to say you can win any series, then it is like it's go time here. And they've been to the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. And so I am not yet ready to bail on the idea that this team can come out of the West. But man, it would sure be nice to start seeing more consistent effort, a 5 or 6 game winning streak to get them rolling on things and make you feel better, because nights like the Sixers do make you question a little bit just how far this team can go.
True. Of course, the other thing we should say is they're not going to play bad teams in the playoffs.
That's
And,
right.
I mean, as much as you want to see them beat lesser teams or teams that are not playing well at the time or missing stars, that's not playoff basketball. And playoff basketball is going to be what defines this team.
Exactly right. And it is, so much of this just does stem from Anthony Edwards setting the tone on a daily basis. And we have seen him in the playoffs lock his jaw and be like, all right, it's time. And everyone responds to that. And it doesn't mean that he is going to score 35 points every single night or play great defense every single night. But the energy that he brings in the playoffs is different. Now, what has to happen is all of these guys, Ant, Rudy, Jaden, Naz, Julius, like they all have to start locking in here soon, so that I still believe that it would be much preferable to have a 3 or 4 seed going into that first round. They can do it in the 6 seed. They did it last year, but that's just not ideal. Like that's just asking for trouble doing it that way. So the Nuggets are banged up. The Suns are banged up. The Lakers are who they are. The Rockets are flawed. The pathway is wide open. Go do it. Like go grab it. Don't back into the playoffs and then just try and have to find everything, as soon as those start. Like go grab it, set a tone, get some momentum going, and get some confidence built that you're ready to roll once the playoffs begin.
Good stuff, John. Thank you. We'll talk to you next week. You can also, again, hear John on the Viking Update podcast.